Hello, PEI. What if I told you that the best news for the local real estate market right now is that things have finally gotten, well, completely and wonderfully boring?
I mean, boring is definitely not the word most people associate with real estate these days.
Right. But today, we are looking at why the end of that crazy real estate roller coaster is exactly what you need right now, whether you're buying or selling.
Yeah, it's a bit of a counterintuitive thought. We are just, so conditioned to think of a healthy market as one that's constantly breaking records.
Oh, for sure. Double-digit price growth, bidding wars.
Exactly. Moving at breakneck speed.
Yeah.
But the reality is that a frantic market is actually a highly fragile market.
Which brings us to our focus today. But first off, I want to give a huge, enthusiastic thank you to the show's host and our content provider, Mike Montague of RE/MAX Charlottetown.
His research is just always so spot on.
It really is. His continued support and the foundational research he provided for today's discussion is honestly what makes this deep dive possible. We are looking at a really great stack of sources today.
Yeah, it's a very comprehensive pile of data.
We've got Mike Montague's own market text, which is titled The 2026 Canadian Real Estate Equilibrium. And we're combining that with the CMHC Housing Market Outlook for 2026, RBC Economics Quarterly Outlook, and the latest statistics from CREA-PEI.
In synthesizing all that data,
Yeah.
it paints a very specific picture of our current economic reality right now in mid-March 2026.
Yeah.
It shows a landscape that is stabilizing in ways that actually, give everyday people their agency back.
And that is exactly our mission today. For you listening, we want to help you understand this major shift happening in the market.
Without boring everyone to tears, hopefully.
Exactly. We are keeping things fun, we're keeping it optimistic, and we are actively avoiding getting bogged down in dense spreadsheets.
No one wants to hear us read a spreadsheet.
No, definitely not. Instead, we are focusing on why, right now, today is a unique win-win moment in PEI real estate. Okay, let's unpack this.
So the foundation of this shift really starts with market psychology. Because before we get into the specific numbers for, say, Charlottetown or Summerside, we have to look at the psychological thaw happening across Canada.
The thaw. I like that.
Yeah, well, Mike Montague highlights this perfectly. He notes that we are officially moving past what he calls the Great Freeze of the last 2 years.
The Great Freeze. That term just perfectly captures the paralysis we saw.
It really does.
Yeah.
People were just stuck.
Yeah.
We're shifting away from that pure reactivity and finally moving toward rationality.
Because buyers were terrified, right? They were terrified of overpaying just as the market peaked. And sellers were terrified of listing their homes and getting zero offers.
Exactly. And a massive driver of that paralysis was the fear of the mortgage renewal cliff.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the cliff.
Because we had millions of homeowners who locked in at those rock bottom pandemic interest rates.
Sometimes under 2%, which is wild to think about now.
Right, under 2%. And they were staring down the barrel of renewing at potentially 5 or 6%.
And that is the kind of payment shock that just completely destroys a household budget.
Oh, absolutely. The anxiety surrounding that cliff dictated market behavior for almost 24 months.
Yeah.
People just stopped moving.
Yeah, no upgrading, no downsizing.
Nope. They didn't want to trigger a new mortgage at a drastically higher rate. But the data shows that the cliff is softening now.
Because the Bank of Canada has held steady at a policy rate of 2.25%.
Exactly, which is the crucial mechanism here.
Right, because a 2.25% rate isn't the, cheap money of the pandemic.
No, it's not cheap, but it represents predictable money.
Predictable money. I mean, it's kind of like the difference between driving a car with a stuck accelerator and finally being able to use cruise control.
That's a great way to put it.
You aren't necessarily going as fast as you were, but you are finally in control of the vehicle. You can take your foot off the gas and just breathe.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for the everyday buyer who has just been, well, terrified of making a move for the last 2 years?
Well, predictability allows for long-term financial modeling. Right. When a buyer or a homeowner knows their rate isn't going to wildly fluctuate over the next 6 to 12 months, they can actually sit down at their kitchen table and confidently run their budget.
They can actually plan their lives again.
Exactly. Dirt cheap money creates frenzy and speculative buying. But predictable money, that creates confidence.
Yeah.
It allows families to make decisions based on their actual living needs rather than trying to, time a chaotic financial market.
So let's layer the employment data on top of that confidence, because that's a huge piece of the puzzle too. Looking at the RBC Economics Quarterly Outlook, they are projecting overall economic growth to be quite slow this year.
Yeah, around 0.7% GDP growth.
Right. And just to translate that for everyone listening, a 0.7% growth rate is sluggish. It means the overall national economic engine is basically humming at a low idle.
It is. And on paper, a low GDP figure can sound really alarming.
For sure.
But the underlying detail that RBC points out regarding employment tells a very different story.
Okay, how so?
Well, broad GDP growth might be sluggish, but the per-worker labor markets are actually stabilizing. The unemployment rate is drifting lower.
Which is the metric that actually buys houses?
Precisely.
Because abstract GDP percentages don't sign mortgage documents.
No, they don't.
Individuals who feel secure in their daily employment are the ones who sign a 25-year mortgage. If you know your company isn't doing mass layoffs, you have the psychological safety to re-enter the housing market, even if the national economy isn't roaring.
Yeah, that per-worker stabilization provides the income security required to match the new interest rate predictability. It's a dual foundation.
Right.
But to fully understand why Canada is finding this footing, we actually have to look beyond our borders.
We absolutely do, because you can't talk about buying a house in Stratford without talking about the rest of the world. Everything is connected.
It really is.
Mike Montague refers to these geopolitical forces as the global chessboard.
I love that term.
Me too. And one of the biggest pieces on that board is trade, specifically the tariff shadow that has been hanging over the Canadian economy due to, well, U.S. trade policy uncertainties.
Right, because the threat of blanket tariffs on Canadian goods entering the United States, I mean, that had the potential to severely disrupt our manufacturing and export sectors.
It's terrifying for businesses.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It acts as a massive depressant on business investment.
Just to clarify for anyone who doesn't read international trade agreements for fun.
Which is most people, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. The CUSMA exemptions we are seeing are a massive deal. CUSMA is essentially the updated NAFTA.
Right.
And because Canadian exports largely secured exemptions from these heavy new U.S. tariffs, the economic floor beneath our industries remains intact.
Yeah, businesses don't have to price in a massive new tax on their cross-border sales.
Right.
And removing that layer of uncertainty means factories keep running, logistics companies keep shipping, and those workers keep their jobs.
It preserves the baseline economic output of the country.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we see a very similar protective mechanism with the partial trade truce with China.
Yes. RBC noted this, right? The removal of tariffs on Canadian seafood.
Yeah. And for Atlantic Canada, and PEI specifically, this isn't just a minor bullet point in some global economics report. We can trace the direct causality here.
Oh, for sure. The mechanism is highly localized.
Very. When heavy tariffs on seafood are lifted, the profit margins for fisheries and processing plants immediately improve.
And when those processing plants and boat crews have higher, more stable revenues, the workers get steady hours.
Right.
They get their full seasonal shares. And suddenly, those individuals have the verifiable, reliable income required to walk into a local bank and qualify for a mortgage.
Exactly. The lifting of a tariff in Asia literally translates to steady housing demand in coastal PEI communities.
It's wild to think about it that way, but it's so true.
It just demonstrates how deeply integrated regional housing markets are with global trade flows, which brings us to the broader geopolitical climate.
Right.
We are seeing ongoing tensions in the Middle East and just general global volatility everywhere.
Okay, let me push back on this for a second.
Sure.
Because we are talking about market confidence, right? But we are also bringing up global chessboards, international tensions, and trade wars.
Yeah.
If you are an average person reading these scary geopolitical headlines, shouldn't your natural instinct be to pull your chips off the table?
That's a fair question.
Like, shouldn't people just be holding on to their cash, waiting for the world to calm down before they buy a major asset like real estate?
What's fascinating here is how global volatility actually reinforces the Canadian housing market.
Really?
Yeah. It seems contradictory, I know, but Canada acts as a geopolitical shock absorber.
A shock absorber. Okay, explain that.
Well, in times of severe global stress, international capital actively looks for a quiet, highly secure place to park.
Ah, right. The safe haven status that Mike highlights in his text.
Precisely. Canada offers a highly regulated banking system, a stable political environment, and a reliable rule of law.
Things we take for granted every day.
Exactly. We forget how valuable that is. When the rest of the world gets chaotic, the demand for Canadian stability increases. Foreign capital flows into our defensive assets, and Canadian real estate is considered a top-tier defensive asset.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So that influx of capital, combined with our secure banking sector, it actually protects local equity. Your home in PEI is insulated from global shocks because the Canadian market as a whole is acting as a vault for stability-seeking investments.
That reframes the picture entirely. The global turbulence doesn't threaten the Canadian harbor. It actually increases the value of being inside the harbor.
Exactly.
So let's take that macro stability and zoom in directly on Prince Edward Island.
What's it do?
Because based on the CMHC and CREA reports, Eastern Canada, and PEI specifically, is currently the real estate outlier in the country.
The contrast is honestly stark when you compare PEI to major urban hubs.
Yeah.
The CMHC outlook shows markets like Toronto facing significant headwinds right now. They are seeing price slides, and the resale inventory is just piling up. Pre-construction condo sales in Toronto have hit multi-decade lows as investors pull back.
Because Toronto is dealing with a massive hangover from the speculative condo boom.
Exactly.
But then you look at PEI, and the February numbers show incredible resilience. PEI's average home price just hit a new high of $422,667.
Which is fantastic news for local equity.
It is. It tells us the demand fundamentals are holding strong, but it's not the toxic, frantic demand we saw 2 years ago.
Right, and the CREA data for PEI provides the necessary context for that average price.
Yeah, let's look at the CREA numbers.
In the fourth quarter of 2025, single detached homes spent a median of 69.5 days on the market. That is up from 63 days a year prior.
A median of nearly 70 days.
Yeah.
That means a typical house is sitting on the market for over 2 months before a deal closes.
Right.
During the peak of the pandemic frenzy, houses were selling in a matter of hours or days.
Oh, people were buying houses off of iPhone videos before they even hit the MLS.
Exactly. It was pure chaos.
So the time on market is extending, and overall inventory is sitting between 5.9 and 6.9 months.
Okay, let's break down that metric for the listener. What does months of inventory actually measure, and why is 6.9 months significant?
Sure. Months of inventory is a metric that basically measures the balance of supply and demand.
Okay.
It asks a simple question. If no new homes were listed starting tomorrow, how long would it take to sell every single home currently sitting on the market at the current pace of sales?
Right, so it's a measure of absorption.
Exactly. Generally speaking, anything under 4 months is considered a seller's market.
That's where supply is tight, buyers panic, and you see those aggressive bidding wars we talked about.
Right. And anything over 8 months shifts into a buyer's market, where inventory piles up, homes sit indefinitely, and sellers are forced to slash prices.
So sitting between 5.9 and 6.9 months puts us right in the middle.
It does. It places the PEI market firmly in the Goldilocks zone.
The Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold.
Exactly. It is a perfectly balanced market. Supply and demand are meeting each other rationally.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because of this Goldilocks zone, we are seeing the return of basic due diligence.
Yes.
The home inspection is back. Financing conditions are back.
It's so good to see. It fundamentally changes the power dynamic of the real estate transaction.
It really does. Think about the sheer anxiety buyers faced during the Great Freeze or the peak frenzy. To even have a chance at getting a house, buyers were forced to waive their financing conditions and skip the home inspection.
Which is terrifying.
Completely terrifying. They were essentially crossing their fingers and risking severe financial ruin just to get the keys. If the foundation was cracked or the roof needed replacing, they just had to eat that cost.
Right. And removing conditions was a symptom of a deeply unhealthy, adrenaline-driven market.
Oh, for sure.
But with homes now sitting for 69 days, that pressure cooker has been turned off. A buyer can go view a house on a Saturday. They can go home, sleep on it. They can review their budget and arrange a second viewing.
They can actually hire a professional inspector to ensure the house is structurally sound. They can secure their financing with their bank without having a racing heart.
It replaces panic with process.
Process. I like that.
This is the practical, everyday reality of moving from reactivity to rationality. It is an environment of empowerment for both sides of the transaction.
It truly is a win-win scenario right now.
Yeah.
Because if you are a seller, you shouldn't be panicking about the longer days on market because the data shows your home's value is holding strong.
Right.
With an average price of $422,667, your equity is safe and insulated. You just have to be a little more patient.
And if you are a buyer, you finally have the time to breathe, to think, and to negotiate a fair deal that protects your family's financial future.
It really is the healthiest market dynamic we have seen in PEI in half a decade.
It is. However, while we are celebrating this moment of equilibrium, there is a data point in the CMHC National Outlook that serves as a bit of a subtle warning sign about the future.
Oh, okay. Let's hear the warning. What is threatening this balance?
Well, the CMHC data notes that developers nationally are pulling back on starting new ground-oriented homes.
Ground-oriented. So we're talking about single-family homes, townhouses, duplexes.
Exactly. Because of high construction financing costs, labor shortages, and just general economic caution,
Mm.
major builders are hitting the pause button on new projects.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. Building a subdivision requires a massive outlay of capital up front.
Yep.
And if builders are cautious about that slow 0.7% GDP growth we talked about earlier, they aren't going to take on that level of risk.
Right.
But houses take a long time to build. The permitting, the site prep, the actual construction, it's a multi-year pipeline.
It is. Which leads to the provocative thought I want to leave our listeners with today.
Okay, lay it on us.
Real estate supply operates on a significant lag. If builders aren't putting shovels in the ground today to build the homes of tomorrow, the pipeline is quietly drying up.
Oh, wow.
So will the comfortable, balanced 6.9 months of inventory we are enjoying right now in PEI inevitably tighten up again in the near future?
Right, because if the new supply isn't arriving in 2027 or 2028, the current inventory will eventually get absorbed.
Exactly.
And we could easily slide right back into a tight seller's market.
Right. Is this balanced window a permanent new normal, or is it merely a temporary sweet spot before supply constraints push us back into scarcity?
That's a huge question.
Anyone who is sitting on the fence right now, assuming this relaxed market will last forever, really needs to consider the long-term impact of stalled construction.
That is a fantastic point to end on. It really frames the current moment.
Yeah.
If the economic weather radar is clear right now, and the market is offering you the time and space to make a rational, protected purchase, you might want to take advantage of it while it lasts.
Definitely.
Because waiting to see if the market gets even better might just mean waiting until the next supply shortage hits.
And nobody wants to go back to the Great Freeze.
No, absolutely not. Well, that wraps up our look at the mid-March 2026 market shift. I want to once again directly thank Mike Montague of RE/MAX Charlottetown for his fantastic insights, his deep research, and his ongoing support in making this analysis possible.
Yeah, his finger is truly on the pulse of the PEI market.
It really is. And sharing his work allows us to bring these insights directly to you. For you listening, enjoy the rational market, take your time, and seriously get that home inspection. Until next time, stay curious.